Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's 4 o'clock, so we'll get rolling. First of all, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here and help us plan for the future of the aquatics here in Sioux Falls. My name is Mike Patton. I'm the Parks Planning and Projects Manager here for the Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation Department. We're also lucky to have Leon and Will Younger from Pros Consulting here today. They're going to take us through a presentation here in a little bit and also a visioning exercise. But before we get started on that, I just wanted to point out a couple items of note and give you a little background on why we're here today. The main reason that we're conducting this process today stems from recommendations in our Parks and Recreation System Plan, which Leon and Will helped with a couple years back. And they're going to go into detail on those recommendations, but I want to point out a couple things about that. First of all, we have some pretty old and aging aquatic facilities here in the park system. They've served their useful life, and it's probably time to start thinking about replacement or major renovation to those facilities. Second, we do have strong coverage for both indoor and outdoor water here in the city, but there is some areas that are underserved, and as you know, Sioux Falls continues to grow, the service rings for those facilities will shrink with that. So it's important to talk about that as we plan for the future. And then finally, I would say of all the recommendations that came out of our system plan, the one area where our park system is lagging a little bit behind is the need for indoor recreation space and year-round programming opportunities. So as we look forward with this complete initiative, it's a multi-year process to address our aging facilities, and we're at the beginning. We're at step one, which is information gathering. And it's important that we speak with you, the pool users, the community, so that we get your feedback and we get your input. And it's important to know as we go forward with master planning parks and designing, specific facilities, that it's the information you provide us today that serves as the foundation for the improvements that we ultimately construct in the long run. So with that, I'll turn it over to Don Kearney, who's going to talk a little bit about the park system history and how it's developed.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks again for everybody coming out. Appreciate your involvement in helping us to really shape the future of our aquatics in Sioux Falls. This book that I'm holding here, believe it or not, is the first aquatic facility plan that really talked about replacing aquatic facilities or renovating aquatic facilities, and it's 22 years old, believe it or not. And so we've made some progress since 2000. With the replacement of the Spellerberg pool, where we built the Midco Aquatic Center, and then replacing the Drake Springs pool back in 2009. So while we've made some progress, 22 years later, we're here at the point where we need to make some more progress. And we're really looking to move forward with the planning needed to take action to improve our aquatics infrastructure. And we're, again, really excited to get started on this process. Normally we replace one pool at a time, but we typically don't look at the entire system of pools and services collectively like this, so it's a kind of a new territory for us. So over the last 18 months or so, we identified this as something that came out of the comprehensive plan about our aging facilities with the aquatics. And so we've been working with the mayor's office, the city councilors, Parks and Rec Board on a new quality of life bond. And that quality of life bond would really be used to fund the replacement or enhancements to facilities across our aquatics enterprise. It's not something that's new for the city. In my time here with the city, we've actually done 2 quality of life bonds already. And it really allows you to do projects that you normally can't do as just part of your day-to-day annual repair and maintenance capital improvement program. And so to give you a couple examples of where we've done this in the past, we've first did a quality of life bond about in that 2007-2008 range, where we did a main library renovation, we replaced the Drake Springs pool, and then we also built the Harmondon softball complex. And then a few years later, we also did another quality of life bond where we built the Prairie West Branch Library. We funded a portion of the first phase of the Downtown River Greenway improvements. We funded the Sanford Sports Complex fields where the junior football program plays. and then we also did some zoo master plan improvements. And so we grouped these projects together to really create a bonding level that makes sense from a saleability of the bonds, but also the marketability of those bonds, so that we can get good rates on those. So you might be asking, well, what's a quality of life bond? You know, it really is a mechanism that cities use to be able to do these large-scale projects, again, that are really difficult to do in 1 year of a capital program. And typically, these are projects that span more than 1 year. The thing I want to be clear about, though, is that a lot of times when you hear about a bond or a bond issue, that's not what we're planning to do here with regard to you know, a mill levy increase or a tax increase or anything like that. That's not part of this. We're using existing sales tax revenues that the city has to pay back those bonds. And so I just want that to be clear as we talk about bonding for these projects. The other thing I'm pleased to report that by 2025, not only the first bond, but the second bond that I just talked about will be paid off, and those debt the city will be free and clear of that debt going forward, again, using existing revenues. So when we talk about quality of life bond, I just kind of wanted to give you a little refresher on what that really consists of. You know, I'll be turning it over to Leon Younger. Leon's the president of Pros Consulting. And as Mike mentioned, he's helping us to facilitate these community discussions. 2 years ago, again, as Mike mentioned, we spent about 18 months having pros evaluate our Parks and Rec system. They essentially looked at every aspect of our department operations and really made recommendations on what could the department do or what should the department focus on over the next 5 years. We presented that plan to the City Council in early 2020, and it was adopted by the council. As I mentioned, again, there's a number of recommendations for improvements, and one of the things that they do when they come in and work with city departments all across the country is try to identify gaps in service and really try to identify, are there opportunities to improve the equity of the services that are provided across the park system. And so Leon and his son Will take you through their findings and recommendations from that comprehensive plan and that system plan as it relates to what we're talking about here, as it relates to aquatics and indoor recreation, to try to talk about those strategies so that as we move forward in this planning process, our hope is that we can try to address as many as of the recommendations and the strategies in our comp plan as part of these projects as we roll them out. Before I turn it over to Leon, though, I'd like to recognize our elected and appointed officials. We have Sarah Cole, City Council member. Sarah, if you'd wave. And we have Jim Stavanger, who's a Parks and Rec Board member. Teresa Caldwells, Brooke Wagner. Did I miss anybody? Other Park Board members? So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate that. Leon, you're on.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Just a little bit about Pros. As Don said, we're Park and Recreation Management Consulting Company. We work with park and recreation agencies all over the United States. So in that process, in helping them establish direction for their system. So this plan really requires public engagement about what are the most important elements associated with both aquatics and indoor space. And so our discussion tonight, or this afternoon, is really about that. So as Don said, the reason behind the Aquatic Center, really, when you look at the placement of where the aquatic facilities are, as well as spray grounds, you can kind of see the areas that are being served. And then obviously everybody recognizes, if you live here, this is a fast-growing town, and there are a lot of areas not served adequately by indoor space or by aquatic facilities. And primarily we just want to get some feedback on looking at the types of facilities and the type of experiences that basically you're looking for in these aquatic areas. So as Don said, we want to look at replacing aging aquatic facilities. One of the pools that we're looking to replace is over 50 years old. It's hard to get 50 years out of a facility. And and especially in a cool weather climate, okay? And so that's, we're looking at that as an alternative, as well as renovating and updating aquatic facilities to extend their useful life. And part of that, when you think about aquatic facilities, there's really kind of 5 bodies of water. There's play water, there's program water, there's fitness water, there's competitive water, and then there's moving water. And so in every one of those categories of types of water, people want different experiences depending on how you use aquatic facilities. And so when in looking at this, and when we talk about updating aquatic facilities, we're not just talking about are we just replacing what we already have or updating, but how could we engage other different types of experiences that you've seen either here or other places around the country that you've said, hey, this would really be great if we could have this experience here in Sioux Falls. Also, we want to look at maintaining the level of service population. It's really amazing how fast Sioux Falls is growing. And when we talk about trying to meet a certain level of standard, we're talking about so many square feet or size of facilities per population served. And so when we know that as the city continues to grow, the number of people that in a facility can serve gets less and less because the growth of the city. And so when we go to the next slide, we're basically talking about year-round programming for indoor space. One of the things we recognized when we did the plan is that the city has done a really good job in terms of creating parks and trails and sports fields and different outdoor spaces, but the limitation on indoor space is really limited. Most of their facilities are at a school or a grade school and has a gym or maybe one program space. And so in looking at that, we made some recommendations in the plan that we're also looking at in this quality of life opportunity bond issue that Don talked about was basically is what are those things that we need to be looking at. And then in doing that, we know that between outdoor aquatic facilities, Metco's already in place. What are those things that you think needs to be served on a year-round basis? Okay. We're aligning this also. The city did a community health improvement plan. And if you really recognize and follow lots of what's going on in the park and recreation industry, health and wellness is at the very top of everybody's mind about how to use parks for health and wellness efforts. And so priority number 1 in this plan that was done by the city is really active living, and the goal is to get people moving more. And in doing that, we see both on the aquatic side as well as the indoor recreation side, the effort to try to make that happen and support that. And in that framework, it really supports kids and families, safety and health, and workforce. And I was telling Mike that we were working with a town in Columbus, Ohio, and they were ranked 17th in the state in health. And the city took on a goal that they wanted to be the healthiest city in the state. And so in that process of doing it, in 5 years, they moved from 17th to 3 through their parks and recreation system, through their facilities, through their trails, through their efforts to really bring health and wellness to the forefront. And now their whole goal is they want to really market their community as the healthiest city in Ohio. So our goals are to determine the best way to meet your needs. I mean, you're the people who use this town facilities, or you support the park system. These are the aging facilities we think need to be replaced, which is Frank Olson, McKenna, and King, and then enhancement of the existing facilities at Terrace and Laurel Oak. But we also know that there are areas that need support as well. In the next slide, you'll see that we want to make sure this is community driven, it's dynamic and realistic, it's flexible in programming in terms of options that you'd like to see in either indoor or outdoor design of aquatic facilities. We want to provide an estimate on what it's going to cost. So through this project, process that Don outlined, which is really over a 6-month period, is to make sure we heard what you're looking for, what you think is best serves this community for the future, what's the next 50 years look like for aquatic facilities in the community, as well as indoor space, and what is it going to cost, so that the council and the folks who would support this recognize that we heard you, okay, and that we want to support it.